Good morning, everyone. How are you doing,
Good
Francois?
morning, Royal. Good. Funny enough, for me, it's not the morning because
That's
this
right.
week
It's not.
I'm working EU time, so I woke up at like 2 a.m.
Oh
So
man.
the coffee I'm having right now is probably like the third or fourth of my day.
Oh wow. Yeah, you're on. I'm on my second one, and I remember last night. You're going to bed, and I'll probably be awake when you wake up for your 2 a.m. And I was awake.
Yeah. Hmm.
All
Funny
right.
times. Funny times.
We got a few people in the chat. How are you guys doing today? Wanted to check in with you guys and make sure you had your coffee as we talk about all things Wi-Fi. And this is our coffee hour. We usually do it live on our YouTube stream. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be uploading more videos. Um,
Look at that fancy link.
yeah, that's pretty fancy, right?
You have a producer, right? Working with you? Yeah.
It's you and I.
Okay. So which coffee are you drinking?
I'm drinking this San Francisco based coffee. It's actually a Keurig cup,
Nice.
so it's pretty neat. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, Jabert. Good evening from the Middle East. Thank you for joining us on your
Nice.
evening. And Gjermund, he's on. Welcome, Gjermund. Happy to have you on our live stream and coming from Norway. So we got two guys watching us in the evening.
Nice.
So we have a couple of things to talk about in this coffee hour. We're going to talk about some CWNEs, newly minted CWNEs from our Slack channel. So that's cleardescend.net/join dash Slack.
Slash. Slack. Yeah.
Yeah,
Slash Slack. That's what it
Slack. Yeah.
is.
We'll talk about Juniper and the Magic Quadrant, what your thoughts are, what our thoughts are
Hmm.
personally on Magic Quadrant stuff. We are going to talk about as well Wi-Fi 6. We always like talking about Wi-Fi 6, some of the spectrum that's coming up, like 6 gigahertz and all that, and share some resources from the community as well. So why don't we get right into it? So we do have a Slack channel for Clear Descend. It's a great group of people. I don't even know how many people we're at now, but we keep it fairly small, I think. We have some good discussions in there. There's about, I don't know, over 420 people now in in our Slack. If you want to join the conversation there, you can actually find a link on our website, cleardescend.net. But there are three members there, two members that got CWNE, and a couple of people who got their CWNA. So just want to congratulate Jeremy Sharp. He became CWNE number 412. And then we got Josh Schmelzel,
Schmelzoen. Yeah.
and he's number 413. So right after Jeremy Sharp. Congrats to
Back
both of
to
those
back.
guys. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then
Congrats, guys.
yeah, and then we have Carlos who got his CWNA. So I try to keep up with everyone who's
Yeah.
getting their certification.
Actually, today they announced CWNE number 414. And it's John
Yeah.
Kilpatrick. Yeah.
Yes.
It's close to you. Yeah.
He is. Yeah, he's over here in Santa Clara. Congrats to John, and we're getting up there, right? To with the CWNEs.
Almost to 500. Huh?
Yeah,
It's
almost
nice,
there.
really.
We're so close. So congrats to those guys, everyone. Uh, it, it's uh, it's quite the achievement, right? To get your CWNE. And I always tell people whenever they get their CWNE, now the real learning can begin, right?
Yeah.
We were doing a lot of studying, going through those professional level certifications, but once you have your CWNE, then you could start leveraging that to really put that knowledge to use. What do you think, Francois? You agree?
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of agree. And then when you become CWNE as well, you have to go and get your credits every 2 years. I think you need 60 credits. So That I guess you can use that as an opportunity to keep on learning. It's easy to just stop when you get CWNE, right? But we it doesn't mean you've learned everything about Wi-Fi. You and I both know that we are learning like stuff every day, almost something new every day. So there's still a lot of things to learn, and I guess it's not only for Wi-Fi, but in general in technology, you kind of have to keep on learning all the time if you want to, I guess, stay engaged and curious and I guess up to date.
Yeah, I guess we find ourselves more in that position because we run the podcast. So there's
Mm-hmm.
the Wi-Fi portion that we have to learn. We learn how to do this live stream setup. And then you're also an instructor, so you have to stay ahead of your students, right? And be able to teach
Mm-hmm.
them the next up and coming CWNEs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hopefully.
All right. So we'll probably see a couple more CWNEs before the end of the year. I remember when I got my CWNE, I got that. I got the notification maybe a few days before Christmas. So that was like
Mm-hmm.
a really good end of year surprise for me. Not really a surprise since I applied, but it was a good gift to end the year, right?
Yeah, I think I got mine early in the year. I think February or March, something like that.
Okay.
I still remember receiving the email.
Yeah.
You know, you finally get the email saying, yes,
Yeah.
I got
I
it.
got it.
I think I got I don't know how they do it now, but I think I got the email before it went public on Twitter. I don't know about you. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's
I
what I
got it.
remember.
I got the email too before it was published. And
Mm-hmm.
and Gjermund has a comment in there saying if listening to our episodes can provide CWNE credits, that would
I'm
be.
sure it does. I'm sure it does.
We should ask Tom Carpenter over at CWNE if it counts. That would
Yeah.
be really good. So that's CWNE. Good memories of us getting our CWNEs. So why don't we talk about this Juniper Magic, Magic Quadrant, because Juniper's leading it now, right? And I did have an interview with Juniper about this. So if you look at our YouTube channel, there is an interview with Juniper about getting to this point because it is quite different from what the Quadrant looked like about even a year ago, 1 to 2 years ago. Because back in 2018, Juniper was in the bottom left quadrant, the niche players, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Cisco, HPE, and Extreme were in the leaders quadrant. And then last year, Juniper made it into the visionaries quadrant, probably because of the Mist acquisition and
Mm-hmm.
their whole AI play. Juniper really started pushing out a lot of their products there. And then we still had the same three vendors in the leaders quadrant. And then come this year, Juniper is now the leader in that quadrant, and right behind them is HPE, Aruba, Cisco, and Extreme Networks. And so the question I have for you, Francois, and to everyone else that is watching, what do you guys think of the Magic Quadrant?
I think so. It's like you say, it's a big jump. I was expecting Juniper to do really good, but honestly, I wasn't expecting it to be that fast.
Yeah,
Usually, it takes a little bit of while for the Magic Quadrant to move along. Um, so to me, like my surprise when I saw the updated Magic Quadrant wasn't to see like Juniper in the leaders, but the surprise was to see how close they are to HPE, and then you can see a little gap with Cisco as well. And I was expecting like the three big players to be like kind of together.
yeah,
Right now we see Juniper, HPE kind of have a little bit of a lead in front of Cisco. And I think Magic Quadrant are very important for both, the businesses like Aruba, Juniper, and Cisco to kind of sell their solution, but they're also important for customers or people that have to take decisions, because sometimes they're gonna rely on the Magic Quadrant, right? It's been known to be kind of the source in the industry. So executives, they're gonna take a look at the Magic Quadrant. They're gonna listen to what Gartner is saying, and so it's a really good news for Juniper and even we tend to forget HP this year because Juniper made such a big move. But HP is also, like, if you look at the actual results of the report, you can see HP is quite well ranked as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
So
they
it's
got great
good.
products.
They get great products, and then if you I mean, it's kind of like the trend we've seen behind the scene for a little while. We've seen, like, Juniper coming with Mist, coming up with a great solution for enterprise networks, um, and then HP as well with Aruba working on really nice stuff. They also work on AI, and then they kind of develop their whole portfolio. They've been doing that for a few years, so I think it's no surprise that they kind of compete against each other right now on the market. And Cisco, we've also seen Cisco. Cisco is bigger, slower to move, and they're still struggling with that transition to the new. I mean, when it comes to the wireless part of it, they're still transitioning to the new iOS XE, and they have like licensing DNA and all of that. So we know they're struggling a little bit more than the rest. So it kind of, I think it reflects what we've been seeing behind the scene for a couple of years. I don't know what you
Yeah.
think.
I wouldn't say that Cisco is struggling. I think they're on a different playing field, I guess, because
Hmm.
when I look at what Cisco offers compared to what Juniper or HPE offers, it's very different, right? So they are very Cisco iOS centric right now with their own network operating system, and then tying in all their other solutions with Cisco DNA Center. They went all in with this intent-based networking ever since the previous Cisco Lives, right? That has been the messaging for the past 4 or 5 years, looking at their products, and it wasn't very cloud based, right? So if somebody wanted to go cloud first and started to look at this playing field, you would probably be looking at Mist, right? Cisco's offering is the Meraki side, and it's just different, right? It's Meraki is very different compared to what you get with the
Hmm.
other competitors, but it is surprising to see Juniper jump up into the leader quadrant. And I know that there is a divide between technical engineers and also management when it comes to looking at the Magic Quadrant. I know a lot of
Hmm.
engineers just kind of write it off. They don't really believe it, right? There's not that much weight put into it, but management really looks at this as how they make their decisions into which solutions they're going to get, and they look at this comparison. So for me, from the technical side, while I do not write off the Magic Quadrant, I like to understand how did this come together, right? What was the
Hmm.
how does Gartner come up with who goes where? What kind of qualifications does each company have to meet in order to be placed somewhere on that Magic Quadrant?
It's funny because the last one is Ubiquiti Networks. When I mean Ubiquiti is it's a nice solution, right? Like, yeah, I don't know, but I guess you can read the report and get a kind
Yeah.
of an idea. It's
Uh,
obviously it's high level, right?
yeah, it's very high. And plus,
Uh,
we're talking specifically about the wired and wireless LAN infrastructure. And
mm-hmm.
Chris Reed does make a comment that Mist is kind of behind on the wired side of things. They really are. If you look at the Mist platform, and I know Juniper has another product for even doing zero touch provisioning with your
Mm-hmm.
wired switches. So I can probably see how Juniper needs to consolidate and then have to compete with Meraki having a full
Meraki.
networking stack that is cloud managed and easily deployable, right? So Mist still has a long way to go. So does Juniper, but it looks like a fast progression of what Juniper is
Mm-hmm.
trying to do and how they're trying to tackle the market. And I think they're really doing a good job. They have good solutions. I do use both Cisco and Juniper, and I'll be honest, I do like the Junos operating system a lot better than iOS
I'm excited to see next year's Magic Quadrant if they keep on
if they
improving
maintain it. Yeah,
the solution. Yeah,
or if
because
somebody tries to, unseat them.
mm-hmm. Maybe, maybe. Well, I guess we'll see. But I know they're working on the wired side of things. So, um, if they're able to come up with like a full, like you said, a full stack solution in the cloud, leveraging AI and all, maybe it can help them a little bit as well.
Yeah, sure. Like, why not, right? They have this cloud platform. How, with Junos being so extensible with APIs, I don't see why not, right? They just got to build the platform, take their time, and make sure it's not a rushed solution out into the industry.
And at Aruba, they have Central, like, and it competes against that as well, like a cloud solution API and so on. So,
Yeah, but I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I always thought of Aruba Central as not truly cloud when it comes to the Wi-Fi part. There is a controller, a master controller on site, and it's, to me, it seems similar to how Ubiquiti does it, where you can access your controller via the cloud. It kind of acts as this proxy. I don't know what the right term is, but you're able to access your controller via Aruba Central. But I could be wrong there. I haven't really dove into Aruba's infrastructure to really know it like the back of my hand, but I have deployed Aruba Central, Aruba Instant access points, which it works incredibly well. I like it. You still get a lot of flexibility with what you get to configure, and it is a good comparison to I believe to like Meraki or even Mist.
Yeah, so they have APIs as well. So when it comes to network automation, you can also leverage APIs, and they also, I think they have something called Insight, where it's like the AI engine. So yeah, I think they're trying to do similar things. I'm not sure about the controller. I think you're right. I think you need a controller, and then you
Yeah,
can configure the controller via Central.
yeah, you can add a controller, and then I think you
Or
could
instant.
manage the controller via Aruba Central. I don't know. We need an Aruba expert to talk about this. I might just be spewing incorrect information, so I'll stop there. But speaking of,
First time.
wouldn't, yeah, wouldn't be the first time either of us have been wrong.
Yes, yes.
But speaking of access points and Meraki, I have this unboxed access point here that's just been sitting in my area for the longest time. This is a Meraki access point. It's the MR36. So Wi-Fi 6 from Meraki. I'm going to unbox it and kind of talk about Meraki's products because I thought it was interesting how they released all these Wi-Fi 6 access points. So I'm taking it out of the box. I do like the packaging from Meraki. It's very nice, but I am not a big fan of how the access point looks, right? Yeah. To me, it looks like a ship or something from Marvel. Kind of, I forgot the bad guy's name, but this is the MR36. It's pretty lightweight, and it's just got a single Ethernet port. I think it's rated at 1 gig. And the reason why I bring this up, because one, I wanted to open it and probably use it. So my goal with this Meraki access point is we've had previous episodes talking about Google Orion, right? And I wanted to use this access point to test out the deployment of that Google Orion Wi-Fi open roaming type stuff. And I will probably connect it, but I need to get a hold of DNA spaces apparently in order to use open roaming. Yeah, on the Meraki side, yes. But I was looking at Meraki's Wi-Fi access points, and they have 4 different Wi-Fi 6 access points. We have the MR36, which I think is the lowest end one, the MR44, MR46, and the MR56. There were some other access points in the beginning, right? When they first released, when Wi-Fi 6 really was just released, they had their access points. Those are no longer available. My guess is they were probably running on different chips. And I'm not sure if that's the first generation of Wi-Fi 6. I don't know if that's the case, if it's the same chip with these ones, but I primarily wanted to look at the comparison between the MR36 and the MR44 because Meraki lists them both as a 2x2 spatial stream. And I was wondering like why someone would pick MR36 over MR44 or vice versa. Like there really isn't that big of a difference. But I started looking at the data sheet, and apparently the 5 gigahertz radio on the MR44 is a 4x4 spatial stream.
Mhm.
So I think the 2x2 is really just for the 2.4 gigahertz. And so when
And you
I
also
look
have
at this,
a 2.5 gig port on the
yeah, the MR44 has can go up to 2.5 gig. So I mean, I guess that's a big plus if you've got switches that are multi-gig. And it says there's a max aggregate frame rate of 3 gigabits per second on the MR44, whereas the MR36 is 1.7. And so I'm looking at this going, all right, when would you see a huge difference going between the MR36 or the MR44? Because I'm assuming there's probably a big price difference between the two. And I'm not looking at the MR46 or the MR56. Those are kind of, so the MR46, even if you compare MR46 to 44, they're nearly the same as well. The MR56 has an 8x8, 8 spatial stream. So I'm not sure, I don't know how to test whether or not those having that many radios and spatial streams is actually going to be a big benefit to people. I find that the MR36 is probably going to be sufficient for many environments, but I feel that a lot of people are going to go maybe for the 46, kind of like pick the middle, right? Maybe that's how Meraki wanted to sell it.
Well, I guess it depends on the clients you're expecting to have on your network, because if you don't have a lot of 3-stream compatible devices, I mean, having a 2-stream AP can be sufficient for the clients you have. What you get with the, I guess, with the more spatial stream is also more antennas. So if you have more antennas, you can hop the AP on the receiving end of things a little bit to pick up signal coming from the clients. To test the 8 spatial streams of the 56, you could do what I would do is I would do a throughput test and
Okay.
see if it really impacts. Regardless of the number of streams supported by the clients, I would do like a 2 spatial stream, maybe a 3 spatial stream, and then you do a throughput test, and then you try to, I don't know, maybe move away from the AP and see what you get comparing to like a 4 spatial stream and see if it really makes a difference.
Yeah. So we'll kind of touch upon these kind of tests later on, but I just wanted to show and talk about Meraki APs because they've gone through quite a transition, I believe, from different access points. And Chris Reed makes a comment about them. I think he's saying that they were using QCA chips that didn't support OFDMA in the beginning, and now these new access points do support OFDMA, and I think that's going to be the big push right here is how these different vendors will implement OFDMA, how will we capture it, and then how we're
you
going
have to ask
test it.
Gjermund for that.
Yeah.
Supporting OFDMA, it's always the same thing. It's not enough, right? It needs to be implemented and used, right? So yeah, I think you're asking the right questions. Is how do we make sure that it's actually used? How can we validate? And I mean, it's just for us, the nerdy Wi-Fi guys. The users won't really care, but it would be nice to know if it's actually used or not, and if it's making our communication more efficient.
Right. And so we'll touch upon that in a bit, right? Because there is a report that I do want to talk about and get your thoughts on. The one thing that I noticed on Twitter, and moving on from Meraki, I only bring up Meraki because I actually use a lot of Meraki in my environments, and I often get which AP should I use, and it's like, well, start off with the lower one if it's just general office environment, but that's a different discussion. On Twitter, I noticed that RF Chuck, if you guys don't follow RF Chuck Lukaczewski, can never say anyone's names right. That's why everyone butchers mine too. He posted something about the UNII4 ban, right? And how we're gonna end up getting a little bit more spectrum in the UNII4 ban, which it's a potential. It's not set in stone yet. It's not approved. But What do you think about getting a little bit more channels, Francois?
I mean, it's been a wonderful year for more spectrum, I guess, in the US. And I saw that I was like, what the heck? In Canada, we're still trying to get 120, 124, 128. And then you guys already have UNII 3, 4, and 5. So, but I think it's great. Like if you look at the spectrum, if we manage to use all of these channels, we pretty much have almost no gap between the big channel 36 and the end of the 6 gigahertz band, which actually ends in the 7 gig frequency space. So it's going to be like a huge chunk of spectrum available. Um, yeah, I think it's amazing. The work that they've been doing in the US and the FCC to kind of, I guess bring the I think it's going to help the Wi-Fi technologies as well. I wanted to say, it's going to help the adoption, even though like Wi-Fi is pretty much everywhere. But I think with the new spectrum available, we might be able to enable new use cases, rely on the technology a little bit more, um, and I think we're going to end up using Wi-Fi a little bit more once we get access to these. Or once these channels get widely used, because you always have a delay between the time that they announce those things and the time where you actually have devices using these channels. So by the time we can actually do a design with these channels, we might be a couple of years, a few years.
I don't know. I think UNII4, I have a feeling you might not need new equipment for UNII4 because I believe a lot of devices are already, like the radios can go up to that spectrum, right? 5.895. It's the UNII5 band where we're talking about 6 gigahertz is going to require new equipment. So I think having UNII4 available is probably much more beneficial for us than the 6 gigahertz right now. 6 gigahertz will be a big improvement. We'll see new use cases there, but in terms of existing, I think UNII4 will give us a little bit of a boost there.
Gives you 3 channels. Yeah, yeah. It's nice. It's nice. We'll see. I guess that's an important point you're bringing up. Like, will we have to update the hardware we're using for UNII4? I guess we'll see. When they introduce, we actually have this problem sometimes with channel 165. Some devices don't support it. So sometimes you're always asking yourself, do I use channel 165? Am I gonna have issues and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So we might have those questions as well when we start using those new bands. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to see that they're adding spectrum and not removing spectrum. I guess.
We'll see if there's any kind of incumbents or special rules that are going to be required on that. I don't have too much information other than a tweet from Chuck about making the UNII4 nearly a reality for Wi-Fi in the US. So I'm not sure how it affects you, Francois, in Canada, what they're looking at. Maybe they're just waiting on what the FCC is going to do before they make a move.
Yeah, we'll talk about Canada in a bit.
Yeah.
Also, what I wanted to mention as well is here we're talking about releasing spectrum for unlicensed use. So it doesn't mean just Wi-Fi. We always just assume it's going to be just Wi-Fi because Wi-Fi is like the wirelessly or the broader unlicensed technology used out there. But the other technologies might also want to take advantage of that additional spectrum. So I'm thinking of like LTE and license and cellular operators. Chris is listening to us. He's working for one, so I guess maybe he can rest. But these guys, they at one point they'd be like, what, we're paying a lot of money for our frequencies, and why not just use the unlicensed bands and just use LTE and license in these bands and get more money and stuff like that. So especially for 6 gigahertz, I know in Europe they have a lot of discussions around that and the use of 6 gigahertz, and they might have more cellular operator trying to operate on that band. So we're gonna have to not really compete, but we're gonna have to, I guess, maybe cohabit on the space with other players maybe in the future. We don't know yet, right? But we'll see. Even the Wi-Fi is kind of like the primary use.
It is, yeah. And I don't know, we there's a lot going on, right? And we can speculate all we want. I just want to see the hardware and the implementation.
Are you
Try it
waiting for
out.
Your Wi-Fi 6E AP?
Yeah, I'm waiting for that with a 6E device. When's that
Mm-hmm.
gonna arrive?
Well,
Let's just
they
skip. Yeah, let's skip Wi-Fi 6 altogether and just only focus on Wi-Fi 6E.
well, you know what? They released Intel NIC that supports 6E, I think last week.
Okay.
So you could probably, I mean, you in the US, so you can play with these frequencies. I can't. But you could probably purchase one of them and then put it in your Jetson Nano and try to see if you can
Yeah.
make it work when it arrives.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
I have a laptop too, a Lenovo laptop where I could replace the
mhm,
adapter, and that one was the Intel. It is the Intel AX200, and
mhm.
yeah, we can do the testing once those APs are out and see, 160 wide megahertz channels that no one else is on
Yeah, that'd be so. I wonder what type of
for
throughput
my
you're getting on
one
that.
device that
Yeah.
supports it. Awesome. All right, so
I guess. Tell me.
let's move on to the Wireless Broadband Alliance. They released a case study on Wi-Fi 6 deployments. So they went to a couple of different organizations. They had them, I guess, do a lot of tests with Wi-Fi 6. The report is pretty good. It doesn't go into too much detail, but it's enough to to kind of get an idea of how Wi-Fi 6 is making an impact on environments. And so some of the key takeaways I have from that report, and we'll add some of these links to the show notes and the description of the video, but they are trying to leverage wider channels, 160 megahertz wide channels, right? Because why not?
Hmm.
It's Wi-Fi 6. So you want to get as much throughput as possible. And by doing this, they have noticed that latency has reduced by 80%, and they reduced the amount of throughput fluctuation. So the throughput fluctuation is multiple devices that's using Wi-Fi, and the throughput will vary between each device quite a bit, right? So some devices get more throughput, some don't. But with Wi-Fi 6, they're noticing that more devices have closer to a consistent level of throughput, and maybe that's a function of OFDMA. Um, they actually
Hmm.
do not go into that much detail. So they do say there's a significant increase in throughput. So they're able to do 4K video over Wi-Fi successfully with high quality, and they found that more than 65% of organizations are going to deploy Wi-Fi 6 by the end of 2021 next year. So their overall recommendation is to upgrade your Wi-Fi infrastructure to Wi-Fi 6. And so I wanted to talk about this report. What I don't know if you've read it, Francois. I read it this morning. So they tested different verticals. So before we talk about it, these are the different verticals they tested.
Hmm.
Industry 4.0. There was one manufacturing plant where they leveraged Wi-Fi 6. Transportation, they did residential, education, enterprise, a stadium, and public shopping malls. So all of this was done last year. It wasn't done this year because I don't think we'd get good details with COVID.
Yeah.
But before I start going into it, what do you think those key takeaways from the report?
Well, it looks it kind of looks too good to be true. No, I don't know. It looks really good. I mean, that's the job of the one of the job of the Wireless Broadband Alliance is to kind of advertise the technology and I mean the tests they do are great. And we were talking to remember when we were talking to Tiago about all of this. He told us they were doing some test real world testing, and you have companies that are members of the Broadband Alliance that actually conduct those tests. The only thing is, I would like to have more details on how they do the test because these companies like Broadcom and so on, they have access to hardware that are that not even out there in the market. Maybe they operated some of the testing on 6 gigahertz, right? Maybe like 160 megahertz, like like currently, when I never use that in the enterprise space, even at home, I don't use that, right? On 5 GHz, we don't have enough channels to use to deploy that in the enterprise space. So I mean, if all the results are based on that, you know, it's not really applicable to what we do in the real world. So it would be nice to have like maybe a better understanding of what tests they did exactly, and how they were able to achieve, the results they advertising. Faster gigabit rate. I mean, yeah, if you're using 160 megahertz, I can see that. But like I said, we rarely use that. I don't know about you, Roel, but what I deploy usually is 20 or 40 megahertz for a
Yeah.
channel. So I'm far
Yeah.
away
Same
from
here.
those gig speeds. Um, I mean, the higher throughput and lower latency, that would be interesting, but I'm guessing they're getting that uh, from doing their testing on 6 gigahertz. Um, what I
I don't
think is
think they're
very
doing 6
important.
gigahertz on these
They don't do
tests.
it.
No.
Okay, because they're talking about 6E, but um, maybe it's for the future. But I think what's important here, I think that's what's really true is that you said at the end that by the end of next year, like half of the customer would have upgraded to Wi-Fi 6. So or something like that. I think that's interesting because that's going to help the technology moving forward. And also what I wanted to say, when they do this test, do they only do this test with Wi-Fi 6 devices, or do they have a mix? Because like in today's environment, in our networks, we have a mix of 11AC, 11N, 11AX clients. So we're
Yeah.
not going to be able to always leverage OFDMA and the good stuff that comes with Wi-Fi 6. So um, yeah, I'm not
So they
sure.
in
Yeah.
the report they did do a mix of clients,
Okay.
and so I found the report pretty promising. But
Mm-hmm.
like you, I agree. I think I would have liked a little bit more details just from the technical aspect of how they set up the test. So on the industrial side, they did deploy Cisco 9100 APs.
Mm-hmm.
IB Wave was involved, I think, with the design and validation part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So they did some real time monitoring. They were doing video streaming in this industrial location, and also large file transfers. And they were seeing a huge improvement based on the upgrade, because what the report said was they could not get this to work on 802.11n access points.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read that part, I felt like you should see an improvement going from 802.11n even to maybe 11AC, but obviously with Wi-Fi 6, you should be able to jump to that as well, to get a bigger improvement in performance, right? You just have newer hardware, the technology is different on these access points. I'm not sure what type of access points they were using previously. I don't know what type of
Mm-hmm.
devices that were being used. So you kind of have to look at that from that standpoint, right? I feel that if someone's making a big upgrade, they are going to see improvements regardless, right? And so one of the tests they did, and the residential one was one I was looking at particularly because that's where I feel Wi-Fi 6 could make a big improvement,
Mm-hmm.
especially me living in the Bay Area. I see a lot of high rises. Neighbors are very close to each other. What if everyone upgraded to Wi-Fi 6? Will we see an improvement with BSS coloring,
Mm-hmm.
OFDMA? Like, how will that look? And so they were saying they had two APs on an 80 megahertz channel. So you got the co-channel interference. And they saw that there was an improvement, even in throughput. But the number of devices, I think, was pretty low. I think it was under 3 or 4 devices. And so I didn't feel that that was enough of a test, right? And I don't know what the channel utilization's like, because for those who have been in an environment with a lot of APs, a lot of other networks around you, you will see a high channel utilization, especially on 2.4, and even on 5 gigahertz. Everyone's running 80 megahertz wide channels. So what does that look like on an all Wi-Fi 6 network, right, all around you? So in the education space, they did a couple of tests where it was the walls were brick or cement, and they were testing Wi-Fi 5 versus Wi-Fi 6, but they only did it with a single client. And with the single client, they did see a 45% throughput improvement between going from Wi-Fi 5 to Wi-Fi 6. And I thought that was pretty good. But again, I would like to see it with multiple clients, right? Because in the real world, like if you're a single client, you've got the whole pie to yourself. So it's going to be good, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a good experience. What does it look like when everyone's on, when everyone's doing something, when everyone's downloading videos, uploading, downloading files, having VoIP calls or video calls? What does that look like on a Wi-Fi 6 network? And what are the real world improvements?
Actually, I was looking at I wasn't looking at the report. I was looking at the web page on the website. You actually have to click and log in to be able to get the
Yeah.
report. So they actually have way more technical detail than what I thought in the report. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they did
I'm
quite
sure
a bit
I'm
of
gonna read
testing.
it. Yeah, it's nice. They actually you have some graphs. They tell you, the type of testing they were doing. So it's nice, pretty detailed. And then, for instance, for the manufacturer environment, they're telling us that the next step will be to test actually 6 gigahertz.
Hmm.
So they said the trial will be extended to Wi-Fi 6E technology to support AR, VR capability on the live
Yeah,
on the 6 gig spectrum. So I'm loving these testing. Um, uh,
it's
maybe
a good use
we should.
case in an industrial because they did look at AR. And it's
Hmm.
somebody who is taking a tablet and he's using AR to do real-time monitoring, which to me is pretty cool, right? You hover over a device and you or a piece of equipment with your tablet using the camera, and then statistics would pop up automatically on the iPad as you're looking at that piece of equipment. That to me seems pretty cool, and it reminds me of Ubiquity, where they have their AR app where you could look at your switch and see what's connected to each port. It's kind of
Hmm.
similar to that, I think.
Yeah, yeah. You could do, guess, machinery maintenance using AR in the future. I guess.
Yeah, so I think
Um,
that's where we're trying to go, right? We need lower latency. I don't think we
mhm.
necessarily need super high throughput for that type of environment, but they're really trying to do lower latency, more near real time data with different applications. So some of the things I was looking for or would like to see is data points such as average retry rates. What does that look like when you're testing it with other networks? How does that
Mhm.
look with Wi-Fi 5 versus Wi-Fi 6? Are retry rates about the same? Does Wi-Fi 6 handle that differently? How about testing it in an environment where you have a lot of OBSS, right? A lot of
Mhm.
overlapping networks on the same frequencies. Do you still have similar throughput results, or is it still consistent but lower throughput, right? And how does OFDMA affect that?
Yeah, that's a good point. And um, yeah, OFDMA is always something like we're not even sure if it's being widely implemented, widely used. But looking at the testing they've done, I'm guessing that they had access to the firmware or hardware that would support it. Um, but yeah, they did some very good testing. Um, I'm like jealous. I want to tag along and see
Yeah,
what they're doing. We
yeah.
should
This
be
is
the
the
journalists and
discussion.
just tag
This
along and see what they do.
Yeah, and this is the discussion you and I were having before the live stream. Is hey, why don't we do our own test? What if we got in a room? We have access points. We have both Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6. Or what if I set up two rooms where there's two access points? The problem is we need to get enough clients to test. But I can get into a room that has surrounding networks as well to get kind of a real world look at Wi-Fi 5 versus Wi-Fi 6, a mixed environment, that kind of thing, and see what the results are. And we can configure it just how we configure our wireless networks, and then start testing out different channel widths and see do we see the improvement with Wi-Fi 6 there?
The problem when you start doing testing is you want to be able to have an environment that you control so you can repeat and you can compare the tests you're doing. So if you do a test like this in an environment where you have neighbors that you cannot really control, you're not really going to be sure that you'll be able to compare, one test after the other. You see what I mean? So
Yeah.
it becomes harder to design I mean, it's a more realistic real world test, but you
But
cannot
I
really
think that's the
conclude
kind of
anything.
test we need versus a comparison test. We need to
Yeah.
see, does this work? If I were to
Hmm.
replace my Wi-Fi 5 access points now with Wi-Fi 6 with the claims that marketing is giving us, will I see anywhere near those values that they're telling us, right? That's the kind of test I want to do versus people doing very controlled tests, trying to control the surrounding environment to make everything look very awesome. That's what I
Hmm.
don't want. I don't want to test that.
Hmm. All right.
Well,
We'll
we'll
see.
see. We'll see if we
We'll
can
see
get
if
to
we
that.
get to it. Yeah.
All right. So this one I'll leave to you, Francois. You want to talk about 6 gigahertz in Canada?
Yeah, we actually got news last week in Canada. So they actually started the process to get 6 gigahertz in Canada, and the first step of the process is pretty much the government telling everyone that they're thinking about releasing 6 gigahertz for a license use. So just public, they published what they call the public consultation, and so they're offering Canadian business to actually send comments. So tell them if they would like this to happen, or tell them if they have issues with having 6 gigahertz being available for unlicensed use. So this is just the very beginning of the process. So I'm not expecting it to happen anytime soon, but at least we have the process started. So now the next step is to kind of wait for people to send comments out. They have a first deadline, which is the January 19th, 2021 for next year. And then what will happen is that they'll publish the comments from everyone, and then people can reply to the comments and say, yeah, I agree with you. No, I disagree. And we're gonna have this back and forth, kind of like what happened in the US. Remember us reading the different letters from the different companies. So we're gonna have this back and forth, and then we'll see, I guess, what they decide. But if we look at if you look at the report, I guess we can share the link of the public consultation. But it's very similar to what they do in the US. It's kind of like the same frequency band, so from 5.9 gig to 7.1 gig. So we're looking at the same type of spectrum, so more than what they're thinking of doing in Europe. And then also, if you read the report, they also talk about the other countries being involved. So they kind of waited for everyone to move, Canada, the US to move, Europe, UK, I think South Korea as well, announced different things around six gigahertz, and then they kind of waited for that to get the ball rolling. So it's just the first step in the process. If you have a business in Canada, I would just invite you to send a comment and tell them that we do need it. Kind of argues the case, and then we'll see what happens.
Maybe I'll add a comment for you.
I think I'm gonna try to send a comment. I'll see. You have to write a nice letter. It's gonna be public, so
Oh,
I have
okay.
to watch out of. Yeah. And
Well,
you
we'll
have to
see how
argue your
that.
case, right? You cannot just say, "Oh, I want it done." Can I have to argue
That's
your
not
case?
good
So
enough. Okay,
that's not good enough.
that's too bad.
Mm, anyway.
All right,
Yeah,
and
and then also before we close, because we're talking a lot. But yeah, when I saw Gjermund sent us a Twitter messages, I was reading a couple of the articles he published this week, and he has a very nice way of presenting technical content in a way you can actually read and understand in English. So he published a couple of articles this week where he talks about different things related Wi-Fi 802.11, especially on the low level, the PHY types and preamble and so on. He talks about the ghost frames as well, and I thought they were really nicely articulated. So we'll probably share that link in the show notes as well, so you guys can take a read. It's really good.
yeah, I included it in the chat. So if you want to take a look, it's really good analysis of Wi-Fi technically. Like it's a lot of the parts of Wi-Fi that I find very difficult to understand, and Gjermund's able to put this into writing and break it down. And I have a lot of his blog posts bookmarked because I still have to read through them. Some of them I haven't caught up. Some of them I need to reread, right? So there is a challenge for me there, but definitely recommend checking that out.
Yeah, I actually learned how to write his name by Googling his name to get to his website. Now I know how to spell it, so I'm good.
Yeah, check out those blog posts. Very good, especially to talk about the ghost frame, because that was like a huge topic. I don't know, last year or earlier this year. I don't know how long ago it was. I've lost all track of time
now. Yeah.
All right, so why don't we conclude this coffee hour? It's Thanksgiving week here in the U.S., Francois. So I wanted to ask you, what are you most thankful for?
So this year I spent a lot of time with my family because of COVID. So I think I'm very thankful for having my family here supporting me. And it was actually a lot of fun spending time with my family, especially, I got me and my wife, I guess I should say, we got a new kid late last year. So I kind of saw him grow up through the years. So it was nice to be able to spend time with them. And then, spend time in family. I would say that's what I'm thankful for. But
Awesome.
I just want to mention, you guys are late for Thanksgiving. We did it a month and a half ago.
Yeah, Canada had theirs already. I guess we can't have it at the same time, right? So that's why we follow you guys. And I'm on break this week from work, so I'll be just sitting around. I've been doing a lot of sitting around lately. I've just been so tired from working. I know you've been working a lot, Francois, so I am thankful for the work that I'm able to get. The listeners of the show, I want to thank you guys for listening and even joining us here on this live stream. Thank you, Francois, for helping with the podcast. It's been a challenging year, but I think technically, Wi-Fi wise, we've been doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, considering the year, I think we've been doing pretty good, and for the podcast, it was good for us as well because we got a little bit more time to try those live streaming and work on the course and do more video and stuff. So you kind of lose, and you lose on one end, you get on the other end.
Yeah,
so it's nice.
Yeah, and so if you guys want to see the course, go to courses.cleartosend.net. We have our first course there. I'm still working on the CWNA one. I think I'm gonna spend some time during break to actually tackle that and try to complete it and put that into there. And then this week I'll actually be doing a lot more cooking. I usually don't cook that much, but I think it's great to get away from the technology and do something else, right? So I've been doing, I guess, too much eating.
That's nice. I like to bake on my end. I try to bake maybe once every 2 weeks, but I still use technology because I need my tablet to get the recipe. So good luck cooking without your tablet.
Yeah, mine's the phone, so it's just kind of like there, dirty with all the ingredients. So hopefully, you guys will see the results as I post it online this week, how that will run. But we want to thank you guys for joining us on this live stream. We really appreciate it. And if you guys have any questions about anything that we just talked about, or if you want to add some of your own comments, we have a good discussion here going on in the live chat. We have some people participating. If you want to leave a comment down below on the video, go ahead and do that. We want to know your thoughts on some of the news and Wi-Fi, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thank you.
And I'll hang around in the chat just for a little bit before this music ends.
Don't we have to record something else?
We do. Be sure to watch our next episode.
Did you say watch?
Listen.
Oh, they can watch because
they can watch. Yeah, we're gonna watch or listen. And I guess I'll just say it. We're gonna talk with Adrian Granados about his Wi-Fi tools. So it won't be live, but we'll have it recorded. So thanks to everyone. We'll see you later. Have a great week. Guys. Happy Thanksgiving. And
Thanksgiving.
stay safe. Bye, guys.
Put your mask on.